Hello, so I am a spiritual scientist, and today I'm going to be talking about how to actually go about doing demonic magic and a general guide to the practice, because lots of my videos are giving you a background concerning demons and some helps with regards to how to do demonic magic along the way, but in this video I'm going to be really talking about how to go about causing things in the world to change according to your will and working with demons in the process. So first I use a thing of language, because demons respond particularly to powerful thoughts and emotions, less so to general everyday words, and therefore it's useful to have a language which is full of power set aside for demonic rituals. And something that is used commonly within the occult is Enochian, and we can see the Enochian alphabet above. It's worth saying that the Enochian language is influenced by Latin. For example, Lucifer essentially means brightness, and it comes from the Latin word associated with Lucifer, which means, Lucifer means the light bringer. And this language has been used traditionally by priests, etc. Well, Latin, I mean, and therefore things associated with Latin have something religious about them anyway. But Enochian was described as a language of angels, and there is some power within it. And particularly if you're thinking of how to pronounce such a language, well, the language really stems back from other kind of pagan practices in terms of its form, because the letters look quite similar to certain Norse letters, and therefore it's helpful to speak the language in a kind of similar dialect. And the group Halen are very good for listening to, for they do lots of songs, and very powerful songs, with even some satanic symbols in, though they're symbols shared with paganism, so they're not a satanic group, but they do have symbols in which you can use in your rituals, and they're really worth listening to, and they show you how to pronounce things in a more kind of Scandinavian influenced tongue, ancient Scandinavian, so things like Norse, etc. As I say though, you're entirely free to use your own alphabet or language, but this has kind of the power behind it because it's full of history within the occult, and things accumulate. When you're working with demons, things that people have done in the past have power because they become part inherently of the magic. And magical acts are like currents that never die. They might dissipate, but they never die. You know, they're always conserved. And so if something has been used extensively in the occult, it tends to be full of power, and you can easily access demonic things through it. So Enochian is a really good place to engage with demons with something with historical power. And then another thing to look at is worship music. So I mentioned Halon, they're really good. I often use them if I'm just trying to begin to enter a state at which I can do demonic meditation. Generally though, you want something perhaps darker, perhaps a mantra to listen to, a prayer. And there's a particular mantra that a guy who has a YouTube channel where his YouTube name is Behemoth X, he has a really nice mantra which I use a lot when doing demonic rituals, so I would recommend listening to his stuff and saying the prayer as you hear it. And the thing about worship is you're really letting your emotions and thoughts fly freely, because you're essentially opening up yourself to the entire demonic world. and therefore you're going to be flooded with thoughts and emotions at points. Sometimes it will be tranquil and still, but other times there'll be lots of ideas going on. And this is where it's really good to have a book or journal or something to write in. And there are two times you want to do that. Firstly, when making a pact with the demon and speaking to the demon, but also generically when getting involved in a religiously powerful experience. And Amazon sell Books of the Shadows, which are essentially notebooks where you can write in, and these notebooks have been made specifically for writing in things associated with the occult. I also, in addition to a couple of notebooks or Books of the Shadows, I have a kind of bigger notebook which I use to make drawings on, make diagrams, because a lot of these thoughts might not be words, so they might be symbols, they might be things of geometry. There's a book called Infernal Geometry which is worth checking out. But there are many ways in which these demons might communicate to you, so having something where you can write down in the moment what you're thinking, what you're experiencing is hugely helpful. So Book of the Shadows are a good thing to check out, and there are other books out there as well if you're interested. And worship music is about making a connection to the demonic world, not about something specific. It's not a specific ritual. For that you will probably do something a little more particular to the demon you're working with, but generally worship music is there for you to be engaging within the demonic world, and to do this you have to be in a place where you feel comfortable, a place where you feel safe. That could be in your room, or perhaps if you don't feel comfortable being in your room, or there are people around in your house or accommodation who you find challenging, perhaps go outside, find somewhere in the woods or somewhere where you can, carry along, your phone, download a bit of music and go out into the woods, find somewhere nice and there listen to this worship music. Traditionally this worship music is kind of dark within the occult. It tends to be quite heavy, but it can be something incredibly light-hearted. And in my kind of meditations, where I often read out something or make up my own script for doing a path working. Well, path working is when you visualise something to go on a spiritual journey. I often play very light-hearted music, so it can be light-hearted, and if you would like to see some light-hearted stuff, there are plenty of things out there for you. But worship music is about engaging with the demonic world, so be somewhere you feel comfortable. Make sure it's at a time where you can be comfortable and not too stressed, or at least as least stressed as possible, and make sure that your environment is as nice as it can be. And the important thing to remember here is that this music is associated with you and the demonic world, so make it personal to you. And as I say, Behemoth Axe is a very good person to check out. So when you're doing kind of the demonic practices, you'll encounter a fairly large variety of forces, some of which will be hard to tell whether that's an entity or a particularly strong thought or emotion. And one thing you might therefore ask is, in the sea of kind of demonic energy, who and what is Lucifer? Well, this is just the way I see it. There are lots of suggestions here to take account of, but the way I see it, there is a cycle associated with magic and everything spiritual, and the cycle begins with life, then it goes to healing as things begin to die or decay, and healing naturally then leads into the development of new things and new experiences like love, and then eventually death comes, and then spiritually and physically things decay and then are reborn in a new life, or there is a change of state into a new life, and then the process begins again. And this is like kind of a vortex happening, a spiritual and physical vortex, and Lucifer is the source of this vortex. He is the source of a life and all change within life, and also a source of death, not in a malicious way, but in a very just natural way. Lucifer is the source of the kind of evolving aspect to the universe and existence. So Lucifer essentially is not just a person, though he is a person, he is something that causes change in a very fundamental way, and is ultimately the greatest source of change and the most fundamental source of change possible. And associated with this change is different types of magic, but they all find their roots in Lucifer. So there tends to be kind of like natural life magic, which is something practiced a lot in Wicca, as is healing. Love magic is a type of magic called red magic, where you're talking about the emotional connection between people and magic associated with that. And then there is death magic, which is arguably the blackest of all arts. Would I use death magic? Well, only if I had absolutely no other choice. And somebody I loved was in danger, then I might consider it. But generally, death magic is something you want to avoid, but it is a natural part of things, and therefore, it isn't morally forbidden. It's just, life is challenging enough without worrying about death as well, I find. But, this is my concept of who Lucifer is. There are lots of different ideas. But Lucifer is largely recognised as being the source from which things emanate, generally within the occult. And the most complicated thing is, how do you really go about building a pantheon? Because with recording these thoughts, you will have built up something of a general idea of what the demonic world is like, and you will hopefully start to have some experiences associated with it. But how do you go from that to building a pantheon, where a pantheon is a group of spirits you work with on a regular basis? Well, there's a particular kind of process or ritual I would do, but as I say, this can be, changed and is different in all the different books. So for this, I would first say write the demon's name in a way that is very understandable to me in a chosen script. So you can use English if you like, or you can use Notkin. And then what I would do is kind of place that piece of paper kind of in front of me, and next to it have another piece of paper where I write the wish I would plan to do, or something I would like to change within the world, and then I offer that as a sacrifice. And to make that a powerful sacrifice, I use the symbol of fire, so I would kind of, in a safe manner, probably safe here, but safely kind of burn it or do something of that nature. And what that is offering this thing which I wrote in the physical world up to demons. And I'm using fire because fire is a source of heat and energy, and demons tend to communicate through energy. They might mess with kind of the energy around you or the energy inside of you, and that is just communication. And so using fire, I am engaging with their usual method of communication, though they can communicate in other ways if need be. I would then turn on some music and begin with meditative activities. So for this, I might listen to a path working, read a path working, or alternately I might listen or read some poetic phrases written for worship. So like there was a book called At Satan's Altar. This is an amazing book I use it in my meditation practices, and there are lots of books out there which are designed for worshipping Lucifer, beginning to enter a demonic world in a demonic state of mind. And then I would start the ritual once I am in a place where I feel connected. I would generally have symbols associated with the demon around or something. For example, the symbol I draw at the beginning of this ritual where I represent the demon's name. And then I would just, through kind of music with some, worship or meditation music on, usually meditation music, because worship music is getting into the mode, but you can be lost in it. But with meditation, you are more aware of things. And I would write down everything that I feel is significant. I wouldn't worry, and please don't worry, if you end up writing down something and it doesn't turn out to be significant, or if you feel a bit silly about writing something down, or it feels trivial, but you feel moved to do so. If you feel moved to do so, please do, because the meaning might become clear in the future, and even if it doesn't, you gain something through the whole ritual, so engage with it as fully as you can. And you don't have to show what you write to anyone else, so I wouldn't worry. And don't worry if the ritual brings up any fears or things that you might feel a bit uncertain about. Feel free to write them down. You don't have to show this to anyone. This can be entirely private, so please don't feel any embarrassment or any awkwardness about writing down any of this. This is between you and the demons, and this is a kind of private thing, and that's why it's important to do this somewhere where you feel safe. And kind of then what I would do is, after writing down your ideas in a book and the words that they come at you with or you feel come form in your mind, I would then kind of have a final prayer or something, or just in some way bring the ritual to a close, but I will carry the energy with me, and I will use that energy to help kind of stir up some other magic, or use that energy to do light magic that I don't have time to do a full ritual for later on. So you don't have to close the door completely. Keep the door open. The demons are there to guide you and help you, so keep the door open and use this energy later on in the day, or have it with you to meditate on as time goes by. This kind of energy might feel at times powerful and scary. It might even feel negative or destructive, but remember that everything comes as a balance in cycles. Being human is about finding balance, so there is nothing objectively bad. It's just how you use it and how you come to terms with it. So whatever the energy is, there is a good way to use it, or a good way to interact with it, and you'll find what those ways are as you go on in your spiritual practices. And now at a close, after some of these discussions and points that I made clear, I would like to just list some rules of magic. And these are rules that I use. I'm not saying you have to use. All magic is relative, and all ethical principles are relative. However, these are things that I find helpful to just use, and I prescribe by. So firstly, only do what you feel comfortable doing. If any of my advice in this video or in any other videos you watch, it talks about doing things that don't seem comfortable to you, you do not have to do them. We are just giving advice. You do not have to do anything that you feel uncomfortable with. That's important to remember, particularly if there are some books out there which will say do this or do that if you want this to happen. In truth, there are a gazillion ways of causing something to happen or not doing something if that's what you want. You don't have to do a particular method, it's all up to you. And just as kind of what you feel comfortable with doing is important, so are what other people are comfortable with, and therefore when you're doing magic, respect other free wills and their personal desires. I wouldn't do magic that would affect someone that I know without clarifying with them if it's okay with them. For example, healing magic, I would only do that if they were comfortable with me doing healing magic. And generally just keeping aware that, what is different. So if you want something to happen, it is your right to magically try to cause it to happen. But, if it involves other people, particularly if you know them, just be aware that magic can have consequences and effects, and make sure that they are okay with this as well. I mean, if it's something like looking for a job or something, in the same way Christians pray to God for a job and hope that God will intervene on their behalf, it's fine to do that with demons, but there you're asking for an opportunity for you. You're not asking for somebody else's life to be majorly affected in any way, and therefore I would be fine with kind of praying to a demon for a job. That's not something that I've ever had to do, but I would be okay with this morally. And as I say, I'm not saying I'm correct, but these are rules I have found helpful, so I'm sharing them with you. And other things is consider consequences carefully, as I've just outlined, but also don't be afraid to experiment or take on practices from other cultures. There is nothing really to fear with this. There are things to be cautious of sometimes, but those are only things that you feel uncomfortable with or feel some natural cautiousness associated with them. But generally, have fun, enjoy this. This is an experience and it's there to be enjoyed and valued, so don't be afraid to just have fun and to gain wisdom from other cultures, because a lot of occultism draws from other cultures and that adds to it, that makes it richer. And lastly, do a bit of research into the history of kind of people's ideas of the spirits you want to work with. Do research into how you might connect with them. So essentially, when you're building a pantheon or making a pantheon you are very happy with. But as I say, pantheons and everything can change with time, everything is flexible. And so you're not making any eternal commitments, but doing some research is a good idea. Now I know this has been quite a long video, there's a fair amount to cover, but these are practices I do, and please check out the kind of behemoth acts and some other more pagan influenced music, and I really hope you get a lot out of this and a lot out of the demonic journey you may well be on or starting, and I wish you all the best with the path.